Hello Internet, so nice to see you. Let's answer a few more of your music theory questions.
Is C, F sharp, G a Lydian triad? And can you explain different triads like E locrian, etc.?
You can define C, F sharp, G to be a Lydian triad, but the thing is, it's not a triad in the original sense. A triad would be a chord that has three notes, and those three notes are built by stacking thirds. So for instance, in a major triad, C, E, G, between C and E you have a major third, between E and G you have a minor third. On a minor, C, E flat, G, between C and E flat you have a minor third, and between E flat and G, you have a major third. Okay, then you have diminished and augmented, which is C diminishes C, E flat, G flat. Those are both minor thirds. And C, E, G sharp, those are both major thirds. And those are all the possible combinations you can get with three notes and using thirds between those notes. Now, if we want to change the definition of triad and say, no, it's just a chord made by three notes regardless of their relationship, then sure, I can define C, F sharp, G to be a Lydian triad because this F sharp would be typical of a C Lydian scale. I could also define C, D flat, G to be a Phrygian triad because this D flat is typical of the Phrygian scale. And I can do a number of all those things, but at this point, the number of possible combination becomes incredibly vast. I would not think about those as triads anymore. I would just simply think of them as a set of three notes that I can play and they sound more or less dissonant. Because, why should I keep C and G out of those triad and not keeping the E or all these kind of things? So, yeah, you want to call this a Lydian triad? Let's call it a Lydian triad. Not a problem. Know that we are changing the original definition of triad, which you can always do because definitions are not set in stone. But triad originally has this meaning here. Three notes stacked on top of each other, separated by a third.
Would it be possible to avoid parallel fifths when playing two adjacent chords one scale step apart while still trying to keep a voice leading? For me, it doesn't seem possible to do 1, 2, 4, 5, or flat 7 in voice leading without using parallel fifths.
Yes, it is definitely possible. Now, let me show you why it looks impossible and then why it is actually possible. Let's say we are moving between the C major chord to the D minor chord, so 1 to 2 in C major. So that's my desired movement, C to D minor. If we write down those chords in 4 parts, so with 4 notes, it's very common to write the chords this way. So at the base, I'll have a C. This lower line is the bass line. And then we have that other top 3 lines in which we write C again, E, and G. Now, those 3 notes can be actually in any order. G could be the top, or E could be the top, or C could be the top, as long as we double the C in this chord. That will be the most common situation. And then we'll have the D minor chord. Now, if I am naive in doing that, if I just go straight to the thing that first comes to my mind, I will do this. I will just do D, then D, F, A. And these will create a few problems because, for instance, see, between this C and G there is a fifth. Between this A and D there is a fifth. And so when I lead them this way, those notes here create a parallel fifth, meaning that I have a fifth here and a fifth here on the same 2 voices on both chords. But not only that, we create another problem. There's a parallel octave between those notes here. So this is C and C and D and D. Really, this will not sound great. It's possible, definitely. This will sound better if there were 7 chords and it will sound jazzier, because in jazz you do this kind of parallel movement much more often. But if you're in a classical situation or if you are writing for orchestra, for instance, this will sound a bit iffy. So what do we do? Okay, well, after I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be obvious, okay, but since you're there, just take a moment to think for yourself what you're gonna do, okay? Just stop the video and think for a moment. Done? Here's what we're gonna do. We are going to lead the voice in opposite order, so in contrary motion. So this C still goes to D, because this is a D minor chord, not an inversion, so I still want the root on the bass. But, and again, this C goes up to this D. So now we lead all the other voices down. So G will go down to the next note in the D minor chord, so to F. G will go down to F. E will go down to D, and the C will go down to A, okay? So now I have the fifth here on the C major chord, but I have a fifth here, or sometimes here if I reverse those voices, on this D minor chord. So you see the fifth must be there, but they are not in the same two voices, so it's not a parallel fifth. So now it sounds good, okay? Again, in the context we are talking about, of course, parallel fifths are perfectly possible in other contexts, but in this context, now it will sound good because there is no more parallel fifth. Some people don't do that, don't do all this, because they think that this movement between C and A is too far away, but it's not really, okay? Those are just 3 half steps between C down to A. It's not a big movement, and definitely it's much better to have a slightly larger movement in this voice than hearing the parallel fifth, again, if you are orchestrating or writing a music in this specific style, so classical or romantic style. Make sense? So here's how you lead chords that are close by in the scale, so like the 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 in a scale. You just lead the bass the normal way, and you lead the top 3 voices in contrary motion. So this goes up and those 3 voices go down, and if this bass was going down, those 3 voices will go up. This is a standard way of leading it. I didn't invent it, okay? It's not me having a stroke of genius. This is the standard way of leading those voices. You can find a lot more about all these with a lot more tricks applied directly on guitar on my course, Complete Chord Mastery. And if you're interested in those things and making the same chord sound different, I totally recommend that you check it out.
Can this improve my fingerstyle more drastically than just practicing a fingerstyle song?
Of course not, because it's an exercise made to learn the notes on the fretboard, not an exercise made to improve fingerstyle. You have always to remember that every exercise has a reason to be. Every exercise has a specific goal to fill. So this exercise will do nothing for your technique, whatever the technique is. It will not make you faster, it will not make you more expressive, if not because you know what notes you are playing. It's an exercise to learn the notes of the strings.
What century is the augmented 6th chord from? It sounds and functions like a dominant, but hey, call it whatever you want.
As far as I know, the augmented 6th chord comes from the late 17th century, or at least there are a few pieces of music containing this chord already written in that period, so it could be an earlier chord. I'm not really sure about that, but from that point on it became commonplace. But the augmented 6th chord does not function at all like a dominant chord. There is a very specific difference. So now the typical example will be the augmented 6th chord in C major. The augmented 6th chord classically is done on the flat 6th degree of the scale, the minor 6th degree of the scale. So in C major we have the A flat augmented 6th chord. Now an A flat augmented 6th chord is made by the notes A flat, C, E flat, F sharp, while an A flat 7th chord is made by the notes A flat, C, E flat, G flat. Now, we know that F sharp and G flat are the same note enharmonically, but they are written differently for a reason. Because in classical music, in most classical music, in all the common practice period, and indeed, even after the common practice period, this is really common, whenever you have a dominant chord, the 7th note of the chord resolves down. So in the next chord, you're going to see that this G flat is followed by an F note, most likely. Okay? The 7th resolves down. This is true of all dominant chords, okay? Even in blues, you hear that. Even if blues breaks a number of rules, you can still hear that the 7th typically moves down in the next chord. Is it true all the time? No, it's not true all the time. It's a tendency, okay? This tends to happen. It tends to be a hard and fast rule in classical music, though. The augmented 6th chord, completely the opposite. This note here is not a 7th. It's an augmented 6th. That's why we call it in a different way. this note will be followed by the higher note. This note will resolve to a G note in the next chord. And if you look at how, when you play a augmented sixth chord, after that, you're going to find, again, this note is followed by the note higher up. Again, does it happen every single time? Probably not, but it happens the vast majority of time. So those two chords, they have the same enharmonic pitches, meaning that A flat, C, and E flat are the same, and those two notes are the same enharmonic pitch. But they don't behave in the same way. They don't function in the same way. They function differently. This one has the seventh that resolves down. This one has the augmented sixth that resolves up.